Okay, so this interview is about leadership, and I wanted to interview both of y'all because I feel like you both are leaders who I look up to and I admire. So this interview is for me to learn a little bit more about what y'all think about leadership. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So first question is really just around how you define leadership. So if I asked you what was your definition of leadership in a few words, and either of you can go first, how would you define what leadership is?
Sure. I think a leader is someone who is also a teacher, and what you're doing is educating other people on how to be leaders and teachers as well. So that way you can keep on that kind of lineage of leadership. So it's not just about being above people and telling them what to do, but you're trying to get them on your level so you can all communicate on that level.
Okay, love it. Okay, teaching.
I think leadership.
I have a question, Kayla. Before Tiffany, as I'm thinking about Kayla's definition, when you say to get people on your level, do you think you can be a leader with also people who are already on your level?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're a leader, you also are able to acknowledge when people are on your level. I feel like when you're a leader, it's not just seeing yourself as someone who is the head of a group, but you are in the right mindset. You're set on helping others get to the right place and being a good team worker and communicating well and just setting a good example.
Love that. Love that.
I agree. I think the only thing I would add is I think leadership is about service. And so I think it's really important when we talk about mindset, not necessarily like being the commander, like telling people to do ABC. I think it's more so about working, asking the question, like, how can I use my gifts and talents to serve? Like, how can I use my gifts and talents to help and to be of service? And I think in keeping that mindset, it allows you to have humility. And so the people that you're working with, they not only see that you're willing to go and set the example, like Kayla was saying, but I also think they constantly see you asking questions of how you can help. And I think that pulls out of people the same type of mindset. So like, wow, if the leader is asking, how can I help? The team can ask, how can I be of help? And then that collective energy, I think really allows for really great impact. And I think as leaders, that's what you're looking for is how can you use the gifts and talents of yourself and your team to create impact and service to others. And I really think that's an important part of leadership.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that. I like the service aspect, and I like that you brought in the word impact because I do think that, like, at the end of the day, we are trying to make impact collectively, and I think that requires service and sacrifice, and being an example, as you all spoke to. Okay, so my next question is around the leadership roles that you all have taken on in your life. Tiffany, your life a little longer than Kayla's life, but if you think through what leadership roles you've been in, which roles have been most important to you thus far and why? Yeah. And Tiffany, Kayla went first last time, so do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. I tend to think about my leadership roles in a few different buckets because my life is a little longer. So the first bucket is really around in school. I got a chance to serve as a leader on, hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. So hopefully you can edit that. So I think of my leadership starting off in buckets. So the first was around probably in college, being the editor of my school newspaper. And that was really a cool leadership experience because it was all about creating something tangible and like bring in other people's voices and pictures. And we used to do polls of our students, and it was a lot of work. Like, at that time, most of our content we would do on the computers and then print out like actual papers. So, I think it was probably the first role of like learning, like as a leader, like trying to collectively get people to produce something as a deadline. And I think it helped to set up for my next leadership role as a student government association president. So I built like really good relationships, like, in my sorority and so I think those like college.
What sorority is that again? Just
Delta Sorority Incorporated, which is also its own leadership experience, right? Like, working in collective with sisterhood and working, one vision. So I feel like the combination in college of like being an editor, being in a sorority, being on SGA, I still use a lot of those same examples today. In my career in leadership now, I work in health equity. So even in going to, bringing all those experiences together around like organizing around social justice as student government association president, a lot of the same issues that I was really passionate about in undergrad colored, like my leadership experience has colored my professional experience. And so I've been really grateful for that. And I think in all of those, it's always gone back to service. Like, how do we organize? How do we have passion? How do we, and I think those are important qualities. It's hard to lead if you're not passionate about the issues and the things that you're committed to. And so I definitely think that my early experiences in leadership definitely color how I show up as a leader today, particularly doing work like health equity.
Right now, I think my primary leadership roles would be with student council and then my business. For my business, I feel like I've gotten so many leadership skills and then just life skills, just learning how to talk to people, how to be in a room and just be able to walk up to people and start a conversation, being able to keep that conversation, talking to adults, people who are older than you, being able to understand what they're saying and communicate, and also knowing how to disagree with people, especially adults, because it can be difficult when someone's older than you would disagree with them. So learning how to disagree, but also agree, learning how to walk away sometimes when you aren't agreeing with someone. Learning to share spotlight with people, because I've gotten to work with a team. And I think for student council, I've gotten to have more of a voice, which I have loved a lot. I don't even know if I told you this, but with the mural, I think we started working on it last year. So now this year, our superintendent she's working on it. She said she should either have it done this summer or next year. And
wow, the superintendent.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. And tell them what you're doing with the mural. Like, what are you advocating for?
So the whole purpose of the mural was to add more diversity to the school's art. So right now they have a mural in our field house, but it's like all white people in the mural. So I talked to her about it and to student council about having a mural that advocated for people of color who have done things at the school. And not just that, but overall, and just kind of updating it and showing our growth as a school. And she really loved that idea. So she took it on, and that's what we're doing. We're adding a second mural. So it's supposed to be a continuation. It's supposed to show the growth of the school throughout the years.
I love that. I love that. I mean, because we just talked about impact, right? And so like that is something that is really impactful. And I think it's something where other Black, brown students will see themselves and be affirmed, right? When they look in the mural and look at the mural. And so I think that is such a wonderful example of leadership. And I like what you said about sharing the spotlight. Like, I think that's so, and like just learning to communicate and work with people, right? And Tiffany, to your point too, of like highlighting people is a part of leadership. So highlighting other people's leadership in the newspaper, but also like working together to bring something to fruition is not easy because you're not always going to agree. And so I love that you all have touched on not just like the good things that people think about with leadership, but also like the things that may not be top of mind when we say leader. My last question for you all
That just brought up something though too, is I think it's important. I didn't think about this until Kayla spoke, but like also the leadership skills you get from your family. That's probably my first example. Like being a big sister, I think that's something Kayla and I both share, is like being that older
Oh,
sibling.
yeah.
You know, like that comes
Yeah, no, that's true.
it comes with like a different set of responsibilities.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it definitely informs like how you show up, and like a sense of responsibility, a sense of like being responsible for someone other than yourself, and caring and showing empathy, like advocating. You know what I mean? I think you learn
Yeah.
a lot of those leadership skills in your family and community settings, you know?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And so my last question is, woman or girl, what's a woman or girl leader or leaders that you admire and why?
I have to think about
I think mommy, you know, I can't think of a better servant leader. I often think about um, her example, and I think we always have had a strong example of seeing mommy, and like seeing her in our household and in our family operate as a leader. Like I think that has always been very clear. I think working with her in Butterfly Dreamz and working with her at Blue Cross is just the consistency of like execution, you know, and like, you know, I'm not making an excuse of just, you know, finding a way, connecting dots, um, figuring out organic ways to lift up voices, like knowing when to self correct and like be like, okay, it's time for me to, you know, bring somebody else along. But then seeing her impact on other people's lives. And I think for me, the mark of a leader is like, it's not so much about like self promotion, but, you know, what can other people say? And it goes back to impact, but what's the mark that you left? And I think seeing, just that servant leader and seeing so much sacrifice. You know, it's like so hard to see somebody continuously sacrificing to help other people's dreams come through, and really giving your shoulders for somebody else to stand on, right? Like, how can I give you, and we talk about that a lot, like, you know, what's the difference between like somebody that's a leadership or a sponsor? Like a sponsor, a mentor, or someone, or a leader or a mentor may work in private to help move you forward, but like a sponsor is somebody that's going to use their political capital to say, no, I stand behind you and I support you. So I think it's just been awesome to see her work in all of those different ways, as a leader in her family, as a mentor to so many people, as a sponsor, to see her like leveraging her collective power to help Butterfly Dreamz, to help other, particularly Black women in our organization. I just am very like proud to be her daughter. And I think I cannot think of every leadership book I read, I just am like, wow, that's my mom, you know? So I think that's an incredible example. And that's probably my first and favorite one.
Yeah.
I think I would have to agree, but it would have to be all of you, like you, Auntie Joy, my mom, you. I think all of you. Like when I was reading the book about the Mirabelle sisters, which is about like three sisters who were leaders in the Dominican Republic, I felt like that reminded me of all of you, because you're all leaders. And I think what I notice a lot in my own family is empowerment and intelligence and community workers and givers, which are all aspects of leadership. And I feel like that has rubbed off on me and made me the person who I am. And I feel like if you grow up in that environment, you don't have to, but if you do, it just nurtures your leadership even more. So I feel like it makes you a better leader when you're surrounded and grow up with leaders.
I love that. Oh, I love that. Those answers. Oh, yes. Because when I thought about like who I wanted to interview, you know, I was like, I thought of mommy, but I knew like just I didn't know, but like subconsciously I was like, I know. Well, I was like, I'm gonna interview Tiffany because she's my big sister, and then Kayla because you're my niece, and you're like, you know, you are such a leader, and like to be so young. But I wanted to interview mommy too, but I was like, no, that's going to be too much. But I also knew that it would come out in our answers. And I kind of knew, you know, you never knew, but it actually did. And so I'm so happy to end on this, because I do think leadership is not just in school and work environments, but it really is at home too, and what we see at home for a lot of us. And so I love that y'all brought that in. Okay, any final thoughts on leadership or defining leadership or redefining leadership before we go?
I think one more thing I would just say that we didn't talk about is just authenticity. I think in a world that is, when I think like constantly putting images out on social media, or, it's constantly trying to create standards of beauty or standards of, this is in or this is not, or, I think just being really, really authentic and standing in, who you created to be yourself. And I think that that's so important as a leader. And what comes from your heart as a leader will touch somebody else's heart. And so I think standing in your authentic light and truth is so important. And I think that's another piece to lift up too.
I agree. Thank you for adding that. Kayla, any final words on leadership? All right, y'all. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.